And two. What's up, everybody? It's actually a podcast in the house. I'm Chris.
I'm DJ.
And today we are going to cover an example of radical unity, a revolutionary coalition occurring now in the political arena between prominent former Democratic figures who are joining Trump in a coalition that even Trump himself says doesn't even have to be conservative. It's Americans uniting to save the soul of our country. Now, whatever your opinions of Donald Trump, this is quite a surprising occurrence, and we're very excited to cover Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy today, and this momentous move that they have made. It's pretty much political suicide as far as their future in the Democratic Party, but they feel that the Democratic Party is so far gone, so far away from its founding ideals, that it is a time for a radical coalition like this. So we got a bunch of clips lined up and ready to go for you all, and stick with us here. This is going to be something else. I guarantee you're at least going to get some food for thought. So make sure you like and smash that subscribe button and help us support the other creators out there as well, because it is certainly a time of shadow banning and censorship. Sorry, YouTube, I said it. But we just actually had an episode last week that was deleted by YouTube, and we got our first warning. If there's another warning in 90 days, we get our first strike. And if you get 3 strikes, then you get completely deleted, banned, removed from YouTube. The channel erased, and all of the work put into it forever gone. So, we're kind of up against something pretty great here. And we absolutely do hope that you guys have the courage of heart to stand with us. So let's go ahead and look at our first video today. We're going to look at a throwback of Tulsi Gabbard when she was speaking against Kamala Harris during the Democratic National Committee debates, the DNC debates.
Wait, when's the last time they had? That was like the last time they had one, right?
Oh yeah, we didn't have one.
They didn't have one this year. Yeah,
no.
I would have watched it.
Kamala just kind of got appointed somehow, even though she never got any votes, and she was actually the very last Democrat running for president. She had no votes. She didn't even make it to Ohio, and somehow she became the vice president. Strange, but these are the times that we're in. So let's go ahead and jump on over to this first clip, guys. Here we go.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana.
Yeah, she did.
She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you.
Wow. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, it's true. So she literally withheld information that could have freed a man who was on death row, and it took the courts telling her to release it. So she did that. She also extended the sentences of people so they could, and it wasn't just for, making, license plates in prison. It was for fighting forest fires. So, go look into that. And if you want to, get on the whole like anti-slavery thing, well, she kind of, made slaves of incarcerated people. So that's what she did. That's not even getting into, whatever her, personal life history and all that stuff, which we really don't have to.
Nope.
I know that this is an episode about, this coalition of free thinkers and disaffected Democrats that are getting together with conservatives and centrists and liberals that are, either following Trump happily or grumbling along the way, but still doing that. But, still Kamala, she does need, Kamala does, she does require some ridicule. She's been vice president for the past 3 years. Everything she's freaking saying, oh, we'll do it now. Well, where you been? Where you been?
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, all the things that she's claiming to do in her upcoming presidency, she could have been pushing for this entire time, but she is kind of just sat on the back burner there, not really doing much at all.
No, just staying out of the light, because she's a very unlikable, socially awkward individual. So by any metric, you don't want her out in the media. Nobody likes her, and also she doesn't have that. So
that's why she went so long before she finally did one very scripted interview with her VP instead of doing it on her own.
Yeah, well, but anyway,
she's definitely a much better speaker.
But Tulsi was calling her out years ago because she was running for the Democratic ticket, and the Democrats screwed her
big time,
just like they screwed Bernie. So
yep.
And I ain't gonna
yeah,
cry
Bernie
for
was
Bernie or
so
nothing, but
incredibly popular, but the amount of hit pieces in the media when they weren't outright ignoring him, if they were reporting on him at all, it was always a hit piece. And then there was all kinds of strange things that happened during the voting in the primaries, where Clinton somehow was taking states that Bernie had in lock, and you could just see by the stadiums that he was filling, this guy was hugely popular. He actually got more individual campaign donations than any other candidate in history before him. And he was, so he was doing incredibly well, and somehow he was not the nominee. I wonder why. So
yeah,
let's transition back now.
I wonder where that bruise on his face after he
during the DNC.
I wonder where that came from. But anyway,
right. Yeah, because he had said he was never going to give his delegates over to Hillary, and then he suddenly did during the DNC. I saw it live while I was in Philadelphia for the DNC event, and man, I'd never seen so many people heartbroken and teary-eyed and crying at once in my life as when Bernie announced that he was pulling out and giving his delegates over to Hillary. We thought that he was going to try and run an independent campaign, if anything, because everyone voted for Bernie knew that both the neocons and the neolibs infesting both Republican and Democratic parties, corporate interests had corrupted both of these parties, and he was the only one speaking out against it, and on the Democrat side at least. And so we were hoping that there was somebody that would do something, and here he was, and then all of a sudden he caved with a bruise on his face, strangely, that came out of nowhere.
That doorknob,
Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he stopped talking about millionaires and the billionaires. He just started talking about the billionaires.
Yeah, well, because he was a millionaire with multiple homes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, don't hero worship, folks, because you always realize you're here as a human, and they're probably pretty crappy humans at that. So
yeah, really. Well, let's jump back over here. We're going to look at another clip from the Democratic presidential debate, Kamala versus Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wearing black pearls. I wonder what the symbology of the black pearls.
Here we go.
Getting them counseling.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Yeah.
Kamala's like, I don't know, nobody owed an apology.
She called her out again because Kamala just danced around it, didn't say anything of substance in reply to defend herself. She just talked about her record and how good it is without referring to any of the things that Tulsi brought up here. So pretty obvious what's going down there. We've got one more short clip from this. Go ahead and watch the rest of this part now.
Our Democratic Party, unfortunately, is not the party that is of, by, and for the people. It is a party that has been and continues to be influenced by the foreign policy establishment in Washington, represented by Hillary Clinton and others' foreign policy, by the military-industrial complex and other greedy corporate interests.
Senator,
Quite a brave thing to say live on national television.
But
Called
now,
out the military-industrial complex.
yeah, but you notice now though, like it's not too dangerous to say, you know, like greedy corporatists and all that stuff. Like, you know, the Democrats say it all the time, but then when you follow the money, it's like now, well, if you look at them now, they are the party of mystery money. And, you know, if you've been following this Act Blue situation, they may have been funneling a lot of money through fraudulent donations and stuff like that. And it's just, and this, you know, mind you, when she's talking about this was years before. It's not like this funny business just started now that we're getting into. It's been happening. It's been going. Like, you know, I'd venture to say since Clinton, you know, the Democratic Party has been really like pushing to make sure that, you know, they get their way. I won't say the Democratic Party. I will say that those who get the money from the military-industrial complex, which is mostly the Democrats now at this point, but you know, during the Bush era, it was Democrats and Republicans, and you know, there's still a lot of.
They would always fund
Republicans that get
both
that
sides,
money.
and then they would control the outcome of elections by supporting both sides. You know, the big banks, big military, big energy, always put hundreds of millions behind both candidates, so that whoever wins, and these people are always picked beforehand too by the moneyed interests that now run our system of self-governance, because they have so effectively infiltrated, and we've been sleeping at the wheel because we're all being turned against each other in a glorious game of divide and conquer. It's so much fun.
And ultimately, yeah, it's our fault.
We're falling for
we
it.
can blame the parties all we want. We can blame the politicians all we want, but we're still the ones who go out and push the button or fill in the dot or write in the whatever, or don't, or you know.
Yes,
just go along. Well, my friend said this person was cool, and they say they know him, so they're all right. And it's just like, well, you know that saying, and I'm not saying this is, you know, I'm not, you know, condemning or condoning the saying, but the tree of liberty is watered by the blood of patriots or stuff like that. Let's water it with our sweat and our work and our hard work, opposed to having to go that far. Because if it gets that far, we've already failed.
We've
so
already
we need
lost.
we need to be diligent. The sweat of the diligent.
The point of that quote is to say that our representatives should be afraid of the people getting upset with them, and the fear of God should be put in them, because they're supposed to be supporting our interests in government.
Which they're
I remember a quote from James Garfield. He says that the people are responsible for the character of Congress. If that character becomes corrupt, it's because the people themselves have become corrupt.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I agree. It is our responsibility.
It's our fault.
We've let it happen. Now, it's a collective responsibility.
Sure.
And there are absolutely some bad actors out there that are incredibly sophisticated and have a lot of power and money behind them. But still, it is on us to change this world. This is a system of self-governance, so we are responsible for what's happening. So if we've let it go and we're being turned against each other in this divide and conquer game, we have let it happen to ourselves. So it's time that we wake up from that, and not in a woke kind of way where we are super certain, but in a continually awakening kind of way where we are always open to new information.
Present tense and future tense opposed to past tense. Woke is past tense.
Yes.
You know, it's, well.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's woke in the real. So let's go on over to this next clip now. RFK Jr., of course, in our last episode we covered this. You can hear this episode or watch it on Spotify or any of the other podcast networks, Apple, Google, and so forth. The last episode that got removed, deleted by YouTube, is still available everywhere else. So if you look at for the link in the description of this video, you can go back and watch that episode.
It wasn't controversial or anything. It must have, you know, like Chris showed me the stupid spiel letter on it, and the best we could figure out, it was election misinformation, because it was Tucker Carlson and Kennedy.
RFK,
of course they're gonna label it that, because they knew who butters their bread, or can take their butter and their bread away if they so choose to.
And we're small guys here, so it's not like we have a team of lawyers behind us, like someone like Tucker Carlson may, that has actually the means to fight against these people to some degree.
I mean, we're surrounded by lawyers, but
small
not ours.
creators, independent creators like us, we are really easily shut down by these megaliths. And, this is our system of self-governance. Once again, we must maintain the right to freedom of speech. So help us out. Likes and subscribes, comments, everything helps the algorithm. We got to push through this wall of censorship. We've already had one video taken down. So now we're going to look at RFK, which we spoke on last episode, and how he got Monsanto to pay billions. Here we go.
When I sued Monsanto, we came across discovery documents that showed that it was an email exchange between the executive officers of Monsanto Corporation with the head of the pesticide division of the EPA for over a decade. A very well-known.
Look at that quote. If I can kill this, I should get a medal. Oh, wow, wow, wow.
So this was Dan Jenkins, U.S. Agency Lead Regulatory Affairs, Monsanto Company, 1300 First Street, Northwest Suite, 450 East, Washington, D.C., 20005.
Hey, Monsanto. Oh, so let's let that go.
A man named Jess Rowland. He was really secretly working for Monsanto, and they were telling him in these emails, you have to kill this study, you have to falsify this science. We went into court with about 2,400, mainly home gardeners, who had gotten non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from using Roundup. And in the first case, we won $289 million from the jury. The second case, we won $89 million. In the first two cases, the judge would not allow us to show that letter, that email exchange to the jury.
Wow. What?
But in the third case, the judge allowed us to do it. And we asked the jury for $1 billion, and they came back with $2.2 billion.
Woo!
And that forced Monsanto finally to come to the table.
Wow, 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 wow. So that's the Kennedy you've been hearing so much shit about. Look at what this man did for these people.
Well, and the
He's
other
got a whole history of, he started the river keepers. He saved so many rivers in our country as well against actual pollution.
And it's not just the chemicals of Monsanto. Monsanto owns the genetics of a lot of your staple crops, and they can sue you if their genetics get into your plants. So if somebody, your neighbor next door plants Monsanto crops in a field next to yours, and the pollen gets over and it crossbreeds, and then you use your own seeds because you're recovering seeds instead of buying new seeds every time, which Monsanto does. You can look into how Monsanto and a few other companies really destroyed India.
Russell Brand's done some great episodes on this, on what's been happening in India.
Yeah, but Monsanto, they can sue you because their genetics got into yours. Isn't that so weird? Patenting genetic codes.
Yeah, really,
It's like, man, so it's not just chemicals that Monsanto, what Monsanto owns Bayer now, or Bayer owns Monsanto, or something like that. So your nice aspirin is now in cahoots with the poisons, which kind of makes sense,
I remember when Obama nominated an ex, I believe, CEO of Monsanto to oversee the FDA.
Yeah, right.
That was, of course, not in
but Obama can do no
mainstream
wrong
media at the time, but no, Obama
and I've
could do
literally
no wrong.
heard people
Even
say
though
that.
Obama and Hillary and the rest of the Democrats, except for Dennis Kucinich and Cynthia McKinney, voted for the war in Iraq after 9/11. Somehow I knew that was a bullshit war, but they didn't. With all the access to information that senators have, it's shocking, just shocking.
Well, thick stacks of cash make it hard to see when they're put over your eyes.
They do, man.
Oh, the dollar bill is actually the perfect size to put over your eyes.
Yeah. So let's look at the reception that Robert F. Kennedy got when he officially announced his endorsement of Donald Trump at one of Trump's rallies in Arizona. You can feel the spirit of his uncle JFK in the room. This is, the nephew of John F. Kennedy, whose father, RFK's father, was also assassinated. So he's had both his father and his uncle assassinated, and he is now, this guy's been a major figure in the Democratic Party and also a darling of the environmental movement for decades, and one of the people that was actually one of the leaders of the environmentalist movement, at the forefront of that movement. So to see him come to form a coalition with Trump is shocking, to say the least.
Yeah, and to preface this clip too, like there wasn't a cozy relationship between these two individuals.
No.
Yeah, they've talked about things before, and there may have been a somewhat mutual respect, but it wasn't like RFK was always on the Trump bandwagon, or he's just jumping on to get on.
No, they still have some serious disagreements, but on the major points that they agree on, these are existential issues.
Yeah,
and it's something profound to see this happen. So let's jump on over to this clip now, and we're just going to actually basically hear the crowd's response to RFK coming into this room.
People, tonight I'm very pleased to welcome a man who has been an incredible champion for so many of these values that we all share, and we've shared them for a long time. I don't think too many of you people have heard of him. He's very low-key. He's a very low-key person, but he's highly respected. He is a great person. I've known him for so long. For the past 16 months, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
And now the music.
Yeah. Oh, and the funny thing.
So we can't hear the rest, but this roar goes on for like a minute or more, and it continues throughout RFK's speech. We're not going to drag through the entire speech there, but we recommend you guys look it up.
And it's funny, the band who does My Hero, whatever, Foo Fighters, got their panties all in a bunch because their music was used, and they're like, we didn't give them permission. It's like, I hate to tell you, if you're part of ASCAP or BMI.
Yep.
Your stuff, particularly if you're big, will be put in a portfolio that people can pay for to use.
Yep.
And so it doesn't matter. You don't have to approve. And, it just shows you yet again, don't hero worship, because you realize they're humans, and they're probably not that great of humans anyway. Because none of us really are that great at being
Or just
human.
not that informed either.
Well,
I mean, I love the Foo Fighters, but hey, people are often wrong about things, and that's okay. It's, I've been wrong about so many things in my life, and we're just going to keep on learning and growing.
The TDS is strong.
The TDS is real, though.
And for those who don't know, Trump derangement syndrome, derangement syndrome is actually a thing, and the Trump variety is actually a thing.
Yeah, I know most people that are voting for Kamala probably still believe that Donald Trump is racist, even though there is so much information that counters that. I mean, Trump's ex-girlfriend before he was with what's her name, Ivanka? His wife or his daughter?
There's before Melania, that is his current wife, but then
his wife.
He had
Melania.
2 or 3 wives.
So prior to that, he was dating a black model. He supported Jesse Jackson's run for presidency.
And Jesse Jackson supported him too, and gave him kudos for giving a lot of black people jobs.
Trump was close with Muhammad Ali, with Oprah, who wanted to run as his vice president if he ever ran for president, and so on and so forth.
Which would have been bad. Oprah is a deeply corrupt,
and then the numbers of black people that
individual.
have come forth and talked about, now that Trump was being called racist, how he helped them in the past, and it was never in the media. No one ever heard about it until they came forth and said, yeah, actually, he gave me money to start a business. Yeah, he did this. Yeah, he did that. And oh, geez. So it's amazing what media can do when they clip something and then they present it out of context and completely fool people into thinking that when he said there was good people on both sides, that he was actually supporting white supremacists, when prior to that, he had just been condemning white supremacists for several sentences by name, different groups, condemning them and calling them abhorrent and wanting nothing to do with them.
And I don't mean the white supremacists and the neo-Nazis. They should be condemned totally.
You got to clip that part out, though, and just show the good people on both sides part. Yeah. And then people also think that he was being racist against Latinos because he said that murderers and rapists were coming over the border, which is actually true. He wasn't talking about all Mexicans are murderers and rapists, obviously.
I saw it.
But if you want to hate somebody, it's really easy to eat up, the junk food being thrown at you by people that also.
With that statement, I actually saw a really disturbing statistic. I think it was New York. Now, it's like 72% of all the crimes that they're at least recording are from criminal migrants. So
illegal immigrants. Because good, immigration's great for a country like ours that is a melting pot, but it must be legal immigration. People that actually want to be here and follow the American way and help us continue building this dream out.
But don't you know, Chris? No human is illegal. That's why we must call them criminals.
Oh, well, then why are the rest of the countries on the planet still having borders?
Well, except for the Western world, we're told we're bigots for having borders, but everywhere else, fine, Yeah. North Korea, you keep your border.
You have
It's
a border
fine.
on your house, right? You have a door that you lock at
Yeah.
night if you're in a, whatever. Come
Well,
on.
it's
This
yeah,
is so stupid.
I think Trump would agree with this. It's not an issue of immigration; it's an issue of integration. And
Yep.
if you are not here legally, you really have no reason to. And particularly if the government's just giving you stuff, you have no real reason to integrate.
Yeah. So-
America is the story of immigrants integrating into the American lifestyle and making America better.
Yeah. So question what's happening, guys. Question everything that's happening right now and dig deep and look at information from both sides, from all sides that you can get. Don't be out there just confirming your bias because you're going to get locked into a worldview that is going to be quite limited and closed. You're going to start othering and hating and even perhaps excusing and encouraging violence in the name of saving us from the existential threat to democracy that Donald Trump is. Stop believing mainstream media. These people have lied to us so many times over. Just remember the media reporting during 9/11 and how every single news channel, from CNN to Fox, every paper from Washington Post to New York Times, were all together in supporting the war in Iraq. How many times they showed those planes crashing into the towers at every commercial break. They basically gave an entire nation PTSD and then tricked us into fighting a war in Iraq that had nothing to do with 9/11. And then Afghanistan, because we wanted that opium, we wanted to build an oil pipeline through there. Of course, we're never told the truth about these things. We're told that we're bringing democracy to the Middle East. And, it took 7 years for people to come around on that war. It took years of pro-peace, anti-war demonstrations of both Republicans, Democrats, independents, and veterans from wars such as Vietnam all the way up to the present, coming together in major cities and demonstrating in great numbers. It took a long time for us to stop that war. And for us to flip public opinion on it, because the vast majority of people, 80% plus, supported the war right after 9/11. And then 7 years later, 80+% were against the war. So we did eventually come around. But that was one thing that I appreciated, that Donald Trump called out George Bush and Dick Cheney when he was running for the Republican Party, and the rest of the Republicans and the establishment hated him because he was telling the truth about the military-industrial complex. And they did everything they could to push him out. I'm pretty sure, wanted Jeb Bush as their candidate, but Trump was so popular that he ended up being a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah, well, I don't think Jeb Bush wanted it, and I remember distinctly it was
But he would have taken it.
oh God, whose funeral was it? Was it I think it might have been Bush Sr. Yeah, I think it was Bush Sr.'s funeral, but okay, so Bush Jr.'s there, old Jeb Bush is there, Hillary Clinton's there, her carcass of a husband, Bill Clinton's there, Obama's there, and Biden's there. And there was envelopes handed out. Oh, Trump was there too, but nobody talked to Trump. He just sat there respectfully and did what he was supposed to. But there's all these envelopes handed out, and old Jebby looked terrified, like absolutely terrified, and Hillary looked pissed, like literally, what the F is this? Pissed, leaning over the pews. What is this? And then Biden looked smug. So I think that was the orders of this is who's gonna do it, and Hillary was pissed because it wasn't her.
Interesting.
Yeah, check that out. If the footage is still there, I don't know necessarily where to find it. I probably have it saved somewhere, but yeah, it's that funeral. They're sitting there, and you can see when the envelopes are handed out. Jeb looks terrified, Hillary looks pissed, and Biden looks vindicated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Obama looks like he's
remember
the king.
A video of Bush Sr. crying when he opened up about how he wished that he had pushed Jeb to run for president instead of George Jr. Really interesting. So maybe that's why there was some apprehension on the part of Jeb, because he wanted it the first time around and didn't get it. George Jr. got it instead. And the second time around, he was basically being set up to be the president, but maybe he was a little bit less eager at that point. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, but
so
the funny business goes deep.
Let's look at something really interesting. Another major figure of the Democratic Party, whose family has voted Democrat for generations, is quite a controversial figure as well, but a brilliant man, former professor at Olympia State College in Washington State. And his name is Brett Weinstein. And here he is on the PBD
And
podcast.
For people that don't know this guy, Brett is a self-proclaimed progressive. So
Yes.
he's not some right-wing nut. He ain't.
No.
He's
Self-proclaimed radical and progressive.
Yeah, he's actually very. But I know I give liberals crap. But
Radical
he's
as a centrist,
actually
no.
probably he's probably the best example of a well-reasoned intellectual liberal that you can get.
Yeah, he really is. He's on point. So here he is talking about RFK's move to support Donald Trump. This is interesting.
Oh, this is on
Check
the,
this out.
At Patrick David.
Yeah.
Does he having a position or endorsing Trump, does this cause a guy like you to be open to the idea of voting for Trump versus Kamala?
Oh, absolutely. Let me just be perfectly clear about this. I think the modern Democratic Party is an existential threat to the Republic. And although I am a Democrat, I've been a Democrat my whole life, the party that I see in front of me today is literally the inverse of the party I signed up for.
Yep.
This is now the party of war. This is the party of racism. This is the party of censorship. I don't recognize this party. There is no conceivable scenario in which I would vote for Kamala Harris.
Good for him saying that, because I've seen the exact same thing happen. We used to be pro-peace. We used to be anti-war. We used to be pro-free speech instead of pro-censorship. We certainly weren't playing some kind of strange, let's beat racism with more racism game either.
All right, Ibram.
Yeah.
Ex-Kendi.
Yeah. So let's let Brett go on.
I just simply will not do it. Am I open to voting for Trump? I am. I'm especially open to it if he is partnered with Bobby Kennedy, because what that tells me is that my values, which are a much closer match for Bobby's, are represented in that administration. And that's really what I want. I want a coalition to redefine American politics, because, frankly, we have a long-standing problem with corruption, which has now turned into something else with the modern Democratic Party. But
yeah, and he's
he
right.
was involved in the Unity
2020.
Yeah.
Yep, he was trying to get a Republican, an honorable, honest Republican that's willing to work with somebody else to run with an honest, honorable Democrat. So somebody from the left and somebody from the right to run together in a co-presidency, and then they would basically flip a coin to see who is going to be the person that is going to be at the fore of the ticket, but they would govern together. And I thought that was a brilliant idea, because, you know, even several years ago, we were already feeling the growing division in our country, and Brett wanted to help find a way to heal that divide and bring our country back together from the brink, which we are now approaching at rapid pace. So this is a very exciting thing to see happen, whether you like Donald Trump or not, or even, you know, you may have some serious issues with the guy. Notice this bipartisan coalition that is occurring, that is calling out the neocons and the neoliberals, the corporate military industrial complex, the business of war, the war profiteers that run both sides of our government today. Let him finish up. I think it's just a few more seconds here.
we need to rethink the way we govern ourselves so that corruption is not the dominant force, and a coalition is the way we're going to do that.
Amen. So,
And
I
what
really
does
appreciate him
coalition
coming
mean?
forth.
To coalesce, to bring things together,
Yes.
an organization that is things coming together.
Yes.
Key point, coming together, not in this, we need to save our democracy, and, you know, like the new age bigotry, which is the, you know, if you don't believe in our diversity and our democracy and our principles, then you're the enemy. So we need you to, you know, we need everybody to believe like us, or get out, or we're going to, you know, get you out. Right. No, what we actually need is people being like, look, I don't agree with you 100%, but where the pickle is pickled, we agree. Like, you know, massive spending on military. Most sane people are like, and not even our military, other people's military.
Yep.
Or massive spending on our own debt. We spend more on our debt than we do on the military now. It's like,
it's insane.
And where did
just
we get
paying
this
off the
debt?
interest on our debt? Yeah.
Where'd we get this debt? Messing with other people's business.
Yep. So let's switch back to Tulsi Gabbard now, and we're going to see her speak on why she's endorsing Donald Trump for president. So here comes Tulsi Gabbard.
And today I'm honored to officially welcome another true American patriot, a 17-year veteran of the Hawaii Army National Guard, a 4-term Democrat congresswoman, very, very popular, the former vice chair of the National Democratic Party and a 2020 Democrat candidate for the United States presidency. You know, she was a very good...
That's right. That's 2 former Democratic national presidential candidates, RFK and Tulsi, that have now come out in support of Trump. That should be telling us something.
Candidate. Every time she ran, she was good. She did well. She decided to leave. She couldn't take it anymore, but she is
Don't blame her.
very special. And I didn't know this, but she was a lieutenant colonel. That's not bad. Lieutenant colonel.
Still
Not
call her
bad.
colonel.
Not bad.
Oh, the thing is also a lieutenant colonel is still called colonel. So, just so you know. But you know, actually, and she volunteered to go to war.
Yes, she did.
Unlike who's this other guy? You know, Tim, the coach Tim.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, who volunteered himself out of service so he could go be a politician instead of
But
actually
then claimed that he actually carried a gun in the battlefield.
Yeah.
Stolen valor. Nice.
Yeah.
Lying for political
Oh,
points.
and-
Just like Kamala worked at McDonald's, but actually didn't work at
I
McDonald's.
did the
McDonald's
fries.
came forth and said,
Oh.
actually, no, she never did.
Remember when she said, "Oh, I did the fries and the ice cream"? It's like, girl, you know that ice cream machine never works. Nobody does the ice cream. What you talking about?
These people lie through their teeth just to gain your votes.
Ugh, it's disgusting.
And what's really shocking is that Donald Trump actually lies less than these people. Donald Trump's lies are normally exaggerations, like I'm probably the best president in American history.
We
He
have
says
we have the biggest, best crowd, and really, he's not lying for himself. He just wants to zhuzh up the crowd and get them all, you know, excited and stuff. And it's like, okay,
he loves exaggerating stupid shit.
Oh, he's a bit of a braggart and an exaggerator, an outright liar. I don't know.
I haven't seen any outright lies yet. I've been looking. When I first heard that Trump was racist, I was like, oh man, I got to see this. And I looked it up, and then I was like, they clipped that out of context. Why? And I'm like so upset because I'm like, you could attack Trump on actual policies that you disagree with. You could talk about the drilling of, protected lands in Alaska. You could have, there's all kinds of arguments against Trump's policies that you could come up with, but instead you're just going to make shit up. Okay.
Well, no, because they plan
play
on
that game.
when it gets tough, and if they can get favorable agreements to continue the drilling, they just want the money. They want to get paid. They're like, you're going to have to pay us to do this. So come on.
All right, so let's go on. So Trump is continuing his introduction here. Tulsi's about to come out.
But no, she's a special person. She's got great common sense, great spirit. She loves our country, and she loves the people in this room. Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi, please.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. All the cell phones up.
All the military that support right now.
Thank you.
So we're going to...
Thank you, Mr. President.
We're actually going to zip ahead here now and get to the good stuff. So let me see where that was. Here we go.
To this day. This is personal for me, as I know it is for so many of you here. This is real. It's not just words. I first deployed to Iraq in 2005 with the Hawaii Army National Guard as a member of Charlie Med. As those of you who were deployed during that time know, it was the height of the war, and sadly, we took many casualties. And every day we were confronted with that high human cost of war and that sadness as we boarded the plane when we left that we were leaving some of our brothers and sisters behind, only to lose others when we got home to suicide.
That's so sad, man. I remember when I was at one of the demonstrations in D.C. and there was an Iraq war veteran standing beside me and like, dude, it was so sad. You could see this guy, like tears in his eyes. And he was so heartbroken about this war that we were lied into. You could tell he'd just come home from there. And the guy was, just deeply hurt. And that was something to see. He was a 9/11 truther too. I remember the sign he was carrying.
Yeah, well, they still don't take care of our veterans very well.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
But, $100 and some $1,000 for, California wants to give $100 some $1,000 so people who are illegally in our country can get houses. It's like, well, you know, there's people who signed an agreement with the United States military, giving their body away to fight for our freedoms that got screwed over, that aren't seeing help. They're not getting the psychiatric help, and even if they do have counselors, the counselors are probably extremely woke and don't know how to deal with soldiers. And the thing is, it's like you kind of need somebody who's been through that kind of crap to help somebody who's been through that kind of crap, because it's so different from normal life problems. Like, war is extremely different than normal life problems. You know, this PTSD that everybody claims, you know, it's like, because, well, you know, okay, there's certain circumstances,
There's degrees of PTSD,
like, you know,
let's say.
You know, grape and other stuff like that.
Yes.
But it's not the same as, you know, what we used to call shell shock. It's not the same, and that's very different. Like, and I've had friends who luckily made it back from the war, and they'll be perfectly fine. Something hits them, they shut down, or they freak out. That can't be handled by just normal people. But who wants to be a counselor, you know, for, you know, the VA or whatever, that if the money ain't there, if they're just going to get a bunch of crap? Who wants to be counseled by a bunch of, you know, millennials and Zoomers who are being programmed? You know, like, psychology in the United States is the field of psychology is absolutely corrupted at this point. So then they're not going to go. And also, men don't seek counsel. They don't seek help. They're told, if you seek help, you're weak. So soldiers, no, and you know,
and then the help that they get, of course, is basically just a bunch of doctors getting kickbacks from Big Pharma to sell
give you drugs,
different drugs.
Oh, that drug doesn't work. Let's give you more drugs. Oh, that drug doesn't work. Oh, never mind. You're dead now. Sorry.
Oh, they're still giving these drugs out even after we realized that the serotonin uptake inhibitors are not working the way we thought they were. It was probably more placebo effect than anything. I had an ex-girlfriend whose father was in Vietnam, and his whole body was cancer-ridden. Rest in peace, Donnie. And it took all of his life. It's like within 10 years ago that the guy finally got compensation from the government for the exposure to Agent Orange. And, you know, that was the Agent Orange that was created by the very Monsanto that RFK was able to actually sue for billions on behalf of small family farmers and gardeners who were using Roundup, which is nothing but watered down Agent Orange. God, please don't strike us, YouTube, please.
And well, since we're close to being stricken anyway, I think I've got this right, but I think the chemical formulas and all that stuff that they used for Agent Orange came from old Nazi scientists. So, yeah, you know, one of our followers, if you're into that, reading it out, go ahead and read it out. Leave a comment in the bottom if I'm right or not. But I think it was something like that. Like, you know, just saying.
Man, oh man. Well, I'm not monitoring comments today, but if you guys are out there, make sure you leave a comment after the video.
I'm looking at the comments. I'll see you. All three of you here, which one of them is me.
Thank you for tuning in, guys. All right, so let's jump on back.
So I mean what I say when I share with you that I know that President Trump understands the grave responsibility that a president and commander-in-chief bears for every single one of our lives. Whether you're a soldier, you're an airman, a Marine, sailor, or a coastie, he keeps us in his heart in the decisions that he makes. We saw this through his first term in the presidency, when he not only didn't start any new wars, he took action to de-escalate and prevent wars. He exercised the courage that we expect from our commander-in-chief in exhausting all measures of diplomacy, having the courage to meet with adversaries, dictators, allies, and partners alike in the pursuit of peace, seeing war as a last resort.
And his top generals lied to him.
The truth is, as we head towards our decision as a country in November, the same cannot be said about Kamala Harris.
Yeah, whatever happened to actually diplomacy, you know? Now you're a traitor if you talk to... No, that's diplomacy. You're supposed to talk with your enemies. War should be the absolute last resort. Always.
Well, there's less money in it.
It's the way we used to operate, but once it became politically advantageous, you know, they just flipped the script on us.
In fact, the opposite is true, and we're living through this reality today as this administration has us facing multiple wars on multiple fronts and regions around the world, and closer to the brink of nuclear war than we ever have been before.
Yep.
This is one of the main reasons why I'm committed to doing all that I can to send President Trump back to the White House, where he can once again serve us as our commander-in-chief.
You guys are seeing something historic here. And once again, yeah, I know some of y'all watching this have different views on Donald Trump. This is opening my mind. I really liked the idea of a coalition under Unity 2020 previously that Brett Weinstein and others were championing. And so this is something that appeals to that part of me that wants to see us heal this rampant, ever-growing division in our country. It threatens to rip the world to pieces. If America can't hold it together, then things are going to fall apart pretty rapidly around the world. And I don't want to see that happen. I'm sure y'all don't want to either, and a lot of you probably don't even believe that that's possible. But
Oh, that's normalcy bias right there.
yeah,
That'll never happen.
yeah,
Well,
but we are in a rapidly changing time, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the rate of technological growth is exponential, and in the last 100 years, we've seen us go from radio to TV to internet. The entire globe is now connected, and now AI are about to come into the game and be weaponized, and they're already being
Yeah, I was
weaponized
about
on
to say,
social
yeah.
media. And yeah, things are just going to continue to ramp up. So we have to create some sort of stable ground here together. We have to unite. We have to resist the temptation to be turned against one another and to blame groups outside of our own. We got to be willing to challenge our own conceptions and our own groups' beliefs.
And we've got to be willing to be thought of as, despicable and crazy and like be othered, because, well, until we all break free, the person on the other side of the cage door, it will be the other.
Yeah.
But being othered, you got to let them know it's like, look, that cage door isn't locked, and you're using all your force to hold it closed while you're barking at me. So all you have to do is let it go, open up the door, step on the other side of it. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. Just go ahead and get the hell out of that cage. The only thing that's blocking you in that cage is you holding the door closed.
Yeah, let's at least
Literally.
recognize the potential that there are powerful interests that have corrupted both sides of our governments. I don't think that that's that unpopular notion anymore, that hard to believe. Let's recognize that that is happening and that we are indeed being pitted against each other, and let's see what we can do about that.
Yep.
So let's let Tulsi go on here.
Because I am confident that his first task will be to do the work to walk us back from the brink of war. We cannot be prosperous unless we are at peace. And we can't live free as long as we have a government that is retaliating against its political opponents and undermining our civil liberties, weaponizing our very institutions against those they deem as a threat.
Yep.
Kamala Harris has done this over the last 3.5 years. She won't hesitate to continue that if she is elected as president. President Trump has been their first and foremost target in this because they don't want us as voters to even have the option to vote for him. I've been their most recent target, added to a secret domestic terror watch list after exposing the truth about what kind of dangers we would face if Kamala Harris is elected as president.
Yeah, this just happened recently, like a week or 2 weeks ago. Tulsi Gabbard was put on a terrorist watch list. So every time she goes to the airport now, she has to go through a multi-hour rigmarole. She's being treated by as a terrorist in her own country that she fought for on 3 tours overseas, that she has been a senator on behalf of. It's just insane. A former
and mind you, while we're allowing potential and actual terrorists into our country and just letting them run around. And in sanctuary cities, they're like, well, we're a sanctuary city. We can't arrest these people because that's not what we do. Oh, okay. All right. We see your game.
Yeah. Everyone wants to signal that they're virtuous, but no one wants to actually be virtuous. We just want to say that we're on this side because these people depict themselves as good to us, and we have been taught to hate the other side. So here we are supporting, not doing anything, but supporting and feeling good about ourselves.
I'm with her.
I'm with her.
Is that Hillary or is that Kamala? Which her? And
Which-
also, you know,
Just because she's a woman, we're going to vote for her. There's better women out there. Trust. We're
I
watching
mean,
one right
we're
now.
watching one of them. I would have taken her, and I'm not the hugest fan of Tulsi Gabbard. I'm just gonna put that straight up there. I think she's a person with integrity, but still not the biggest fan. But anyway, way better option.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. So let's go on. Tulsi.
We as Americans must stand together to reject this anti-freedom culture of political retaliation and abuse of power. We can't allow our country to be destroyed by politicians who will put their own power ahead of the interests of the American people, our freedom, and our future.
Amen.
I am proud to stand here before you today, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. If you love our country, as I do, if you cherish peace and freedom as we do, I invite you to join me in doing all that we can to save our country and elect President Donald J. Trump and send him back to the White House to do the tough work of saving our country and serving the people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
People hate this. Boy, do they hate
And the thing
this.
is, you know, like,
boy, is that hate strong.
I want to preempt the leftist argument of, well, these are just like, you know, tokens, token Democrats or whatever. It's like, well, they're not. They're people that were actually not really for Trump and not really about this, that see what the Democratic Party has become and had to leave because every fiber in their moral being is screaming, we can't keep going this way, and this is the best avenue out that we have right now.
Tulsi is on a terrorist watch list for speaking out. Okay, this is not a token Democrat. This is somebody that was pushed out of the party. Well, no, she actually willingly left the party, but is now being attacked by the party and vilified. They were actually initially pushing her out as soon as while she was still a Democratic senator, and she was standing against the war in Syria.
Well, yeah, and you know the reason why, even though she was more popular for say like a VP pick for Biden, they just went with Kamala. She was already like, nah, like she saw the writing on the wall. Well, I won't say long
Tulsi,
before, but long enough before her opportunity to become vice president under Biden would have been a thing, and she's just like, nah, I'm out.
They weren't going to take her at that point because she was calling out the military-industrial complex, the business of war, which Dwight Eisenhower warned us about generations ago. Yep. Should have heeded that warning. So let's hear Tulsi now speak on how to save America.
One of the ways to save America,
interview
by
that
the
she
way.
gave on PragerU. And once again, guys, if you want to watch any of the videos we're getting these clips from, they're all in the description of the videos. Go ahead and look for those and check them out. Really good interviews.
One aside that's just kind of funny. So I'll see Tulsi videos that are actually from her page. I don't know, or her channel, and I don't know if she clips or does the little thumbnail art. She picks the derpiest faces for herself whenever it's like, discussing this or whatever, and she'll be like,
and I think someone that works for her.
Well, and I think it's intentional too, because it's just kind of endearing and a little bit funny, because you see this and she'll be like, deep in conversation, when you have conversations, you make weird faces when you're talking, and then you just clip in, it's like, this is great. Be a little lighthearted, All
right, so let's jump on over.
Sorry, little aside I've noticed. And look at that face.
It was that summer of August of 2013, my first year in Congress. I was a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Homeland Security Committee at the time. I would later, that following year, move to the Armed Services Committee. But President Obama came and said he would come to Congress to ask for authorization to go to war in Syria. This decision that he said he would come to Congress for was exactly why I ran for Congress. I had come from 2 deployments to the Middle East that changed my life completely. I had deployed with the Hawaii Army National Guard, volunteered to deploy on both of those fronts, left my seat in the state legislature to do so. I served in a medical unit in Iraq during that first deployment, where every single day I was confronted with the high human cost of war, both in lives lost, but also in both visible and invisible wounds. I was confronted with the war profiteering that drives so many of these wars that are supported by the elite in both parties. I came back from that deployment completely changed, and knowing that I could not go back to the life that I left behind.
That's
well,
powerful.
you're not the same person at that point. The person you were dies, and hopefully what grows out of it is stronger, but you're not the same person when you go through that kind of experience. And even though she may have not been, like frontline infantry, there's a certain amount of trauma you experience when you're patching people back together. And then
she led medics, so
Yeah.
she saw the actual toll, the injuries and the deaths, and every day she had to go through all the people that died, so she saw it all. And from that perspective,
if you actually want a good lighthearted representation of how bad that is, watch MASH, particularly the later seasons. They had a really good lighthearted way about like discussing that, but like, I still get goosebumps from that, because it's just like, well, okay, it's triage. Who are we going to fix? Okay, well, there's this really nice guy, that was cherished and everything, but he's pretty much torn in half, and we can't do anything about him because this guy over here, we can help, and just having to decide who's going to die, or who is already dying, and who could be saved. That that changes you, and it makes you into a different person. So of course she wasn't.
Same when she came back.
And she wasn't.
And she had also realized that this was a BS war.
Yep. Well, that's part of it too. It's when I see I I'm not a warrior. I'm not anything like that. But I do like watching documentaries about wars and about the people who fought in wars. And it's a dwindling number, but we still have people who fought in World War II that are still alive. And there was something to be proud of for that. Those who survived Iwo Jima, those, who survived D-Day, there's a pride because the world was faced with massive amounts of death and tyranny that America was late getting into the war. And, I can understand the reasons of not wanting to get in other people's business, but they did. There's pride in that. But then, okay, well, we get Vietnam. Korea and Vietnam and all this stuff, and
all the adventures in Latin America on the behalf of corporate interests.
Yep, and then you get the first Gulf War, and then you get the next Gulf War, which was
there hasn't been a legitimate war in a long time since World War II.
How are these people going to be proud of what they do? And it's like yes, thank you for your service, but I wonder how how these soldiers feel when it's like, well, thank you for their service. Do you or do you think they're like, what?
Yeah. Well, we've brought this up before on the podcast that Thomas Paine, one of our founders of this country over 200 years ago, said that there are men who get their living by war is as shocking as it is true, but it becomes all the more unpardonable when those men seek to sow discord amongst nations to further enrich themselves, to further increase their profits. So this, war profiteering is an age-old issue, and that is what Tulsi's talking about when she talks about the military-industrial complex, these power centers, because war is the most profitable enterprise known to man. These people have so much influence over governments that it is scary. And the people that stand up and speak out on that are incredibly courageous people. And we should pay a little bit more attention when they speak on these things, because and a little bit less trustful of the social media algorithms and the mainstream media talking heads and what they're telling us, because these people always champion every single war. Mainstream media is always in concert when a new war comes along. All of a sudden, the Republicans and the Democrats in Congress, the representatives, are all on the same page and voting for the wars. So let's hear Tulsi continue now. This is really interesting.
But those experiences are what drove me to run for Congress. So when President Obama made that announcement, I immediately started to dig into why. What does he want to do? Asking the basic questions that all politicians should ask when faced with the question of war or peace. What is our objective? What are you seeking to accomplish? How will you know when you've quote unquote won? What's the exit strategy? What will you do if they counterattack in some fashion? So these questions that are basic, common sense questions I asked of the administration. It was Secretary of State John Kerry at the time and others from the White House, the Department of Defense, the State Department, in open and closed hearings. And what surprised me most was that even in, again, this is 2013, we'd been at war in Iraq for quite some time. And there were a lot of people who I would have hoped had learned some lessons they didn't have answers to those basic questions that I asked. Like, oh, we're going to go drop some bombs to send a message.
Huh. Why wouldn't you have answers to that? So literally, they're just doing the thing at the behest of some likely commercial military interest or group or cartel of industries that are standing to make a lot of money, that are in cahoots
Or politicians.
with the politicians that are fomenting the war.
Politicians pulling
Like
a Biden.
Dick Cheney, Halliburton. Get the gist. Yeah.
Well, like it's like, well, I have some stake in a company that does air conditioning for military outposts. And yeah, so we should continue this because this would be cool because, it costs $8 billion a year to air condition these buildings and I get a cut of that check.
Mm-hmm. Money, money, money. So let's go on. Let her continue.
I said, okay, well, how will they likely react to this military attack on their country? Oh, we don't think they will. Really? And so on and so forth. All of that work that I did caused me to conclude that going and launching another war that would be the first strike in a regime change war, which is what the Obama administration was pushing for, would ultimately not end well for us or the Syrian people, and had a strong likelihood we would end up in yet another quagmire, not only between the United States and Syria, but it would likely turn into a regional war. Came out and wrote an op-ed stating this, and immediately got a call from the White House within 24 hours saying, how dare you?
How dare
Not,
you?
hey, tell us more about your position, or how can we provide you with new information or arguments to address your valid concerns. You're a veteran, you've been deployed to the Middle East, you have a certain experience that maybe we can learn. Nothing like that. It was, how dare you go against your president?
Oh.
How dare you as a freshman Democrat? You haven't even been here a minute, and you're challenging the leader of your party and one who comes from was born in your home state in Hawaii. It was surprising to me that they didn't care at all about the seriousness of the objections that I raised, the concerns that I raised, and what was really at stake. All they cared about was, why are you not being a team player? How dare you betray your president?
Yeah.
I thought you were part of the club. Are we going to have to hit you with the club now? Yeah, well, it's, like, how dare you exactly? Like, do you know who we are? Like, not to keep bashing Hillary, but, do you know who I am? This whole,
A lot of people.
the establishment doesn't think of themselves as our leaders, because leading means that they're going to have to walk the path with us. They are our betters. They are the anointed few. They are the educated, and they know what's going on. And we're to trudge and carry the things and walk the path. They are there to point. Because, they fly over us. They fly over country, the flyover country. The ignorant, we're the ignorant alcoholic hillbillies that they hate. How dare you challenge us?
Yeah.
You lowly freshman piece of crap. You're lucky we let you in here. This is how they think. And this is what the Democratic Party is. Yeah, the Republican Party, to a certain extent, has always been that. And we don't have any problem calling that out. Even Republicans, like the new age of Republicans, have no problem calling that out.
Right.
That's why they're trying to oust the rhinos, the Republican and Namoli people
That dominate Congress still to this day.
Oh yeah. 95% of Congress and the Senate are just all corrupt
Neocons and neolibs.
Yeah, and then there's a handful of people
that tell the truth.
Yeah. And those are the ones that get the crap on the media.
Yeah. So now we're going to look at Brett Weinstein on the Jimmy Dore show. And he is on here with, where is her name? I'm not finding it. But he and one of the other organizers of a Rescue the Republic rally.
Angela McArdle.
Oh, there you go. Right there in the title. Derp. There it is. Angela McArdle. Yeah, so on Sunday, September 29th, that's the 29th of this month, 2024, a group of leaders, scholars, and other notables will converge on the grounds in Washington, D.C., between the World War II Memorial and the Washington Monument to stage the Rescue the Republic rally. As something of a follow-up to the recent Rage Against the War Machine rally, this event will feature speakers including Russell Brand, Matt Taibbi, Tulsi Gabbard, and that's right, Jimmy Dore. Jimmy speaks with rally organizers Brett Weinstein and and Angela McCardle about the event's ambitions, what they mean by rescue the republic, and how people can get involved. I'm going to be there. You guys should hit me up if you know me and you'd like to join me on the trip, because this is going to be a historic event. So let's hear what these guys have to say now. Bing,
Gaming. So what has happened is our institutions have all been captured, and the system now has many of the trappings of a democratic republic, but it doesn't function like one. And that is resulting in a never-ending stream of policies that do not serve the public interest, and increasingly threats to the central values that we hold dear.
So what would be some of those central values?
Well, things like informed consent in a medical context, things like the consent of the governed being the sole basis for the legitimacy of governmental power, a commitment to truth-seeking in which we do not tell ourselves stories that we want to hear, but in fact we pursue the truth that we need to know.
Yes.
We need equal protection under the law. We've seen egregious overreach of lawfare being used against political rivals, being used against dissidents.
RFK, Donald Trump. The next clip we're going to show you RFK's former running mate, Nicole Shanahan, speak lawfare they expect from the Democratic Party.
We need a rational border policy because although immigration can be good, it is not good inherently. And having an open border in which we have no idea who's coming across and what they want and whether they even want to be Americans is very important. There are threats to the family. There's an antinatalism that has taken over our institutions. Yep. There is an onerous belief that the state knows better how to raise children than parents do, and that in fact the state has the right to take children from parents and inflict experimental medical treatments on them that have implications across the child's entire life.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of people that really believe that this is necessary. In fact,
Dude,
teachers.
I have friends that are, you know, true blue Democrats and teachers and everything that say it's like, well, you know, you can't trust parents, you know, like what if the parent is abusing the child and stuff like that? And, you know, it's just like, well,
a teacher can instill love and guidance and do a lot of great things, but brainwashing children to follow the exact political beliefs that you believe is something else entirely.
Well, and then also, children don't need to know your pronouns. They don't need to know your sexuality. They don't need to know about the kinks that
No, especially when they haven't even gone through adolescence yet. Like, tone it down. This is sickening.
And
that stuff is
and the whole idea of hiding, like, so if a kid, and you know, kids are curious. So you know, it's like, I want to be a dinosaur. I want to be a girl. I want to be a ballerina. Well, little Timmy, you wouldn't be a ballerina. You'd be like a ballerino or whatever the male version. No, I want to be a ballerina with a tutu. Well, parents should know about that, particularly if the kids are like experiencing like really negative self-images that are making them, you know, making them depressed and stuff. But no, Democratic Party says no. We should talk to the kids and give them a safe space separated from their parents. And I'm not talking about severely abusive parents when a child comes and be like, look, I haven't eaten in 3 days, or my dad beats me all the time. We're not talking about that. We're talking about little Tommy saying, I want to be Tina. Or being groomed into saying, I want to be Tina.
Yeah,
and then don't tell the parents. And this is legitimately happening. And like, I've talked to my Democratic friends. It's like, well, you know, but
just let the kid grow up to be gay if he's feminine, you know, because that's most likely what it is.
Or just a feminine straight guy.
Or just a feminine straight guy, or tom girl, you know, or tomboy. I mean,
yeah. Whatever happened to the tomboys, man?
Yeah, tomboys were hot.
Yeah, tomboys were cool, you know, like a girl that likes to play with mud and earthworms, man, that was awesome when I was a kid. I was like, finally, cool, you like bugs?
There's nothing wrong with
too.
femininity. There's nothing wrong with masculinity. We do have toxic sides of each of these, but we should recognize that there are toxic masculine and toxic feminine traits out there.
But we shouldn't be allowing institutions like the educational institution to raise our children, and that's another one of, it's our fault. If you've got kids and you haven't had the conversations that they need to have about how teachers can also sometimes not be trusted, and if your teacher says this to you or touches you or asks you to not tell your parents stuff, you should probably tell your parents.
Another episode, but definitely.
But that's what the Democratic Party is getting in. It's institutional capture, and they're in it. And I've heard this, and forgive me for being adamant about it, but it's not normal, and it's not something that. And okay, well, you know, fight the norm and all that stuff. I agree in certain circumstances. But
it's not psychologically healthy for children to have to think about sex before they're of an age.
It's not psychologically healthy for any adult to be force-fed this gobbledygook of you can just be whatever you want, and people have to, make affordances for you and have to cater to you because of something that just popped into your freaking head.
You mean it's bad to magnify people's egos?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well,
Such an
well, when worshiping Satan, you get mad when people say don't worship yourself. So a lot of these people worship Satan without realizing it.
They really don't realize. So let's jump back over, guys, before we get carried away.
Yeah.
So that's the beginning of a list for you.
Free
What?
speech.
That's
That's an important one
Don't
too.
forget that.
Yes, I guess I missed that.
freedom of speech. Well,
Yes.
I agree with you. I think that would be the most important one because without that, you can't get anything correct. And there's been an assault on our speech, especially ramped up during COVID.
Yep. So that's pretty much the end of that clip anyway. We've got one more for you guys. I'm going to call it a night. So this is another really good one. You all probably are not familiar with this individual because RFK was blacklisted by the media. But this is his running mate, Nicole Shanahan, speaking with libertarian Dave Smith. And this was a great conversation. We're just going to watch a little bit of it.
Dave
here.
Smith, the best libertarian, and he didn't want to really be president. So shows he's even better of a libertarian.
Yeah, right. Let's jump on over.
Yeah, it's such a siloed black box right now, and it's so unclear who is running things. I asked for years to engage with substance within the party, and I can't tell you, probably 3 dozen times the response is, do you want to take a car ride with Obama for $150,000? I'm like, no, I don't. I want to figure out what the long-term plan is for regenerative or farming. Like, we call it whatever kind of farming you want, but farming of real healthy food. Like, I really want to talk to somebody about that. And then, talking about chronic health issues. And it's really interesting.
God, what a crazy right-wing lunatic she is to hear that stuff, man. Oh my gosh.
Before I took the offer to do this job, I spoke with some of Bobby's family members. They reached
She looks like she could be a white supremacist, doesn't she?
Well, she's
out
Asian.
to me.
She's close enough to white,
One of
right?
them,
Oh,
we had
yeah,
a mutual friend, and then the other reached out through a mutual friend. And these are individuals that are in DC, so they're part of. They're on the payroll.
Right.
And
On
they
the
reached
payroll.
out, and they're like, "What is it going to take for you to not take this offer?" And I
Wow.
said, and I'll be totally honest and let your viewers know. I said, "Look, we've got to bring back product liability for vaccine manufacturers. We've got to bring that back." He said, "Okay."
Wow, she asked for that.
I think I saw something about
Right.
Pfizer being sued by, I forget which state is suing them, but for lying about the efficacy of their vaccines. It's recent news.
Good, we should see more suits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we should also start looking into vaccine injury and the failure of the VAERS system, because the VAERS reporting system was during COVID an absolute cluster F.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a whole totally different episode. But yeah, like she's right.
She's right.
It's like maybe we should start holding big pharmaceuticals accountable for the terrible side effects of their medication, or pushing medications, or
Well, we typically do, but they actually got a pass during COVID. And initially, these companies
I
were actually
remember
saying,
that.
"Yeah, we're going to do this and not make any money because it's the right thing to do." And then, of course,
And
they
I
turned it
believed them
into
too.
for-profit.
I was
They
like,
made
oh, good on them.
billions. They made billions of dollars. Windfalls.
And then the government was like, oh, well, you can't be sued for it.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like, oh, God.
yeah. We gave them so many protections we'd never give.
Yeah, but
vaccine
you can sue
manufacturers
me
in
if I make
history.
some homemade soup and somebody doesn't heat it up right and they get food poisoning. Okay.
Yeah, and God forbid you feed that food to the homeless. All right, let's jump back.
"Okay, let me see if I can get this done." Reverts. 15 hours later, I hear, "Yeah, can't. Nope, never going to happen." And I was like, really? Like, who would I even talk to? Like, who did you talk to have that conversation? Like, where does one go within the organization
Let's
to
hear
have
that
that
again real
conversation?
fast.
I said out, and, they're like, "What is it going to take for you to not take this offer?" And I said, and I'll be totally
To not take the offer from RFK.
honest and let your viewers know. I said, "Look, we've got to bring back product liability for vaccine manufacturers. We've got to bring that back." He said, "Okay, let me see if I can get this done." Reverts. 15 hours later, I hear, "Yeah, can't. Nope, never going to happen."
Of course not.
Okay, so who did you talk
And
to?
I was like, really? Like, who would I even talk to? Like, who did you talk to have that conversation? Like, where does one go within the organization to have that conversation? And he said, "It's unclear to me, but from the people I talk to who claim that they know, it just can't happen." And so
It just can't happen.
they're sheltering the individuals that are ultimately making the decisions. And, you know, even Bobby's family, I would say, they don't really know who's making the decisions, but they acquiesce to the structure.
Yes, they
Of
did.
course.
They acquiesced. They turned against Bobby. What a shame, man. So
Well,
there's
how dare he leave the cult?
Clearly, obviously, white supremacist Nicole Shanahan, far right loon, speaking on, you know, why.
But she's talking to Dave Smith.
She ran with RFK, and then, of course, the larger rest of this conversation is about why they are now supporting Trump, and she's behind it as well, even though she's not a fan of Trump, but she recognizes the situation that they are in.
Well, I remember she came, or at least I was
Crazy,
seeing
man.
her coming out before RFK came out.
Yeah, she
about
started
it.
speaking
You know,
on it,
so the
yeah.
big stink was she was talking about it. Then people were like, "Oh no, in a few days we're gonna hear something," which is usually the way it happens, whether or not you hear about it. But people, you know, get somebody says something, and it turns out it's like, yeah, that was the case. And you know, yet again, RFK ain't a big Trump guy. She's not a big Trump guy. Tulsi, not a big Trump guy. I'm not a big Trump guy. Chris is not a big Trump guy. Actually, he's less of a Trump guy than I am, and I'm not a Trump guy. But still, it's like we're facing a decision between the very thing that wants to destroy and just destroy. Whether it's us or the system, all they have in them is to destroy. And those of us who want to survive and build.
Okay. Yeah, so
You know?
between us that wants to survive and build, and the other option is corporatists that have infiltrated our system of self-governance and corrupted our elected representatives.
Yeah, it's the destructive only force.
They got the judges in their back pockets. They got the 30 lobbyists per congressperson. They've got the whole thing on lock at this point.
Yep.
And there's one person that is not a part of that establishment that they tried so hard to keep out.
And they tried to kill him too.
And they tried to kill him too.
I don't care what you say, but
that whether you agree with the guy's rhetoric or not, or you think that he's the greatest statesman or not, he was the first president of my lifetime, and I know yours as well, that didn't start any new wars.
No.
And first anti-war president of our lifetimes here, and the economy was a heck of a lot better, and he was not for the censorship, and he was willing to call out the government, both sides.
And I didn't even realize it until like his last year when I was like, okay, let's make a Trump documentary flow chart of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And the more, and the more the lies that I see that I've been told about Trump and that I find out are not at all true, the more I warm up to the idea. Now that RFK is supporting him, I'm with Brett Weinstein, who I deeply respect, and I was a part of the Unity 2020 movement. Now that I see him supporting Trump, I recognize that we are in one of those crucial moments in history where we have to unite to save the Republic. So I'm going to be there in DC on September 29th. I hope to see you guys there too. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Better yet, throw down a comment on this video or any other video here at Actuali. It's going to help the algorithm more than anything. Support your friends and family and independent creators that you appreciate and enjoy out there. It's down to us. This is a grassroots movement, and we've got to keep things growing, guys. Let's save this country, and let's change this world from the inside out. I've been Chris.
I've been DJ.
And we will see you guys next time.
Meow.
Oh, yeah. Come on now.
Let's hope the music is synced up to the camera, or else we'll look really bad.
Love y'all. See you soon.
Meow.